time. I resigned from government, citing my concerns about the direction of travel. I was the first to highlight the problem of the membership change. Membership of my former Conservative Association has virtually doubled in the last year. They haven't joined because we've been a one nation Conservative party. They will have joined for the purpose of securing Brexit and in some cases to get rid of me.
Can we just
and
do
so
that point?
So I think unfortunately, and I say this, I'm genuinely sad after 27 years of party membership at every level. I think that this battle, I gave a year of my life to try to fight this and to try to get to a second referendum for the national interest, but also because I thought that would be the way of attracting back the moderate Conservatives that I know Damian genuinely wants to attract. But I failed to get enough Conservatives, and it got to a point when I saw the administration and how they were behaving and how they started. I just thought, this isn't me. And for me, it's not actually Conservative. So it's like I thought,
you can see his point, can't you, Damian? You've got some sympathy with that, haven't you?
Well, I've got sympathy with the point of trying to attract back one nation Conservatives who may want to drift away over the Brexit issue. Absolutely. Some of my closest friends are very worried about that and disagree with the government.
And some of them have left the party.
On Brexit. Yeah, some of them have left the party. Well, some of them...
Beyond this building.
Yes, indeed. And of course I want them to rejoin the party. And in a sense, more importantly, I think that Brexit is this huge, overwhelming issue which for decades has been divisive in the Conservative Party and is divisive in all political parties. And people talk about a party realignment, but for as long as we have a first past the post electoral system, then and we need a centre-right party, and that party is the Conservative Party, then it seems to me that post Brexit it is very important for that party, the Conservative Party, to be very significantly a one nation party, to appeal to people who believe in free markets but are also social liberals and so on.
But can you be the party of Brexit, which Boris Johnson has clearly decided the party must be at this moment, it's Brexit or die, and tack back towards the centre ground, given how many people are alienated by Brexit and may be alienated particularly by the way it's done, if it's done in a no-deal fashion?
Well, I obviously would much prefer to leave with a deal. But I accept the sort of logic of the argument that says if you have a deadline, you're more likely to get a deal. And because we tried the other ways and delayed and not got a deal. And it does seem to me that a significant contribution, not just to, if you like, disillusionment with the Conservative Party, but even more importantly, disillusionment with democratic politics as a whole, comes from the fact that we had a government that said for a long time, March 29th is the deadline, we're going to leave on March 29th, and then we didn't. That people think, well, what's the point of voting? And that's...
But you think no deal's a disaster waiting to happen. You don't think that's going to restore faith in people's, in democracies?
Well, I think that if we continue to delay and delay and delay, then the people who voted for leave will say, we've been cheated out of it. We were told, here's a referendum. We voted to leave. I wish they hadn't, but they did. And they think, not unreasonably, that we're 3.5 years down the track, or just over 3 years down the track, and nothing has happened, and they are very suspicious. And that, I think, lies at the heart of a lot of the disillusionment with politics. And so, one way or another, Brexit will happen, and we will be beyond this debate. And at that point, we will start picking up normal politics again. And at that point, it seems to me, overwhelmingly in the interests of the country and the Conservative Party, that the Conservative Party remains as broad a church as it ever has been.
Do you think we'll be back to normal politics, Philip? Or has this, as Nigel Farage and a lot of other people believe, utterly transformed our politics, Brexit, and we have moved to a Leave party and a Labour Party that maybe hasn't quite made the full journey to Remain party, but that will be the new cleavage in our politics?
Well, no, I don't think we're going to go back to politics as normal at all. The Conservative Party is, in essence, its strategy is to become the Leave party. It's trying to, the administration, I'm sure you don't agree with this, being the direction. But if I was in number 10, it was how do we copy the SNP and coalesce that Leave vote and get it in enough constituencies and win? Well, we can only do that by squaring off the Brexit Party. We can only do that by going to no deal. And the Labour Party is all over the place. We can see this. They can't decide where they want to stand. The Liberal Democrats are now quite clearly the Remain party, and they've made that quite clear. I can sit here and tell you, there isn't a Brexit, deal or otherwise, that is good for my constituency. That's my judgment as the Member of Parliament for Bracknell. Now, knowing that, what do I do in those circumstances? What is the honourable thing to do? And I've made my move and my decision. And it wasn't on a personal level easy for lots of different reasons after so long. But fundamentally, this is the biggest issue in British politics. It's not going away. People are increasingly identifying themselves as Leave or Remain, not Conservative or Labour or Liberal. And so, yes, I do think it's going to redraw the map. How? That's a bigger question, and it depends on so many things, not least when the election takes place and in what context. But fundamentally, yes, I do believe that there are plate tectonics at play. Things are shifting, boundaries are shifting, and I was straddling one of the San Andreas fault, and I felt deeply uncomfortable about it, and I've just made a decision that actually it's better that I move.
What do you think the future holds for the people who signed Damian's letter, the people who identify as One Nation Tories in the Tory party?
Well, again, it depends how the subsequent election plays out. It depends who comes back here afterwards. It depends on lots of different things. But looking at my own association that I was once a member of, it has changed profoundly in the last 12 months alone. The idea that those members are now then going to choose a leader in the sort of hypothetical situation that Conservatives go into opposition, a leader that is in step with what Damian believes in the Conservative Party, I think is extremely unlikely.
He's right there, isn't he, Damian?
And so I think, I have a lot of regard for a number of Conservative colleagues who've looked actually quite distressed from my new vantage point in the chamber over the last week or so. It's for them to make personal decisions. I don't judge them adversely. We all have to make personal decisions in this. But my own view is that politics is changing dramatically, and the party I've joined is more likely to have a brighter future than any hope that you're going to get back the Conservative Party I joined in 1992.
I want to come back to the party you've joined, whose conference you're about to go to. But on that point, Damian, about how your party has changed, you've got a leader who wants to have a people versus parliament election, not a slogan I could imagine you sort of holding up in a banner as you walk down Ashford High Street. Am I right there?
I mean, you say who wants to hold that election. That's an assertion.
It's a very clear piece of briefing from the people who are closest to him.
Well, but I mean, similarly this morning, I mean, to counteract that, I see that the people who do briefing at number 10 have made it as clear as it can be that there's going to be no deal with Nigel Farage. So this particular idea has been knocked on the head this morning. So clearly, I think it would be wrong and indeed mad for the Conservative Party to try and sort of lock in with the Brexit Party. But I think there's one of the reasons, apart that I disagree with Nigel Farage about practically everything, is the point about whether this changes politics forever. Of course, Brexit changes Britain forever, and therefore will change British politics forever. But the idea that future political parties will have to be based on the fault line of Brexit seems to me to be very questionable, precisely because when it happens, it will be an event. And so that event will have happened. And in 5, 10, 15 years' time, just defining yourself by one past event seems to me to be actually quite unlikely.
Isn't that what happened in the Scottish independence referendum? That it did actually transform politics. Of course you get a bit of movement at the edges, but people do identify strongly with their referendum vote, don't they?
Sorry, just for a second, but in Scotland, you still have a Conservative Party and a Labour Party, both of them unionist parties, who still scrap over economics and all the other things we disagree on. And so there are people on the hard left who voted Brexit and people on the hard right who voted for Brexit. Now, it seems to me they can come together in the Brexit Party. The MEPs they had elected include Claire Francis, who used to work for Living Marxism and is an apologist for Slobodan Milosevic and things like that. Now, she can sit in a political party with Anne Widdecombe, but they sure as hell couldn't sit in a government together because they disagree about everything else. And after Brexit, the government of the day will have to agree, broadly speaking, on everything else. So I don't see this sort of simple transition of the Brexit debate into the future party system.
I mean, I have some sympathy with that. I don't think you can define yourself, oh, I was a Remainer in 2035 if we've Brexited. I get that. But I think Brexit is a manifestation of a broader change around being open or closed in terms of your view in the world. I mean, I look at today's announcement on foreign students and I welcome it because I disagreed with it when it was first done. Yeah, I welcome it. Now, why has this happened? It's happened because
the idea of allowing students to stay longer when their course is finished.
The politics of it are obvious as to why they're doing it. They're trying to demonstrate that actually they're not closed, they're open for a vast of reasons. The problem is that the original referendum was won by being closed. It was essentially saying no more immigration, the poster, the infamous poster. And it's that's always for me been the problem with taking that mandate from 2016. If we were delivering a Brexit as a country that matched what the 2016 Leave campaign was about, I'd have had less of a case. But the reality is that what we're doing is we're taking those voters in the Midlands and the North who had problems with immigration, well documented, and we're saying to them, okay, we're going to deliver Brexit to meet that concern. And now we're going to announce that actually we're going to be
it won't be what you thought it was.
Foreign students can come in, they can stack shelves, they can take your jobs and all the other stuff. I find that
does go to the heart,
deeply reprehensible.
Damien, doesn't it, of Boris Johnson's problem. He turned around to the cabinet yesterday and said, don't worry about me, I'm a Brexity Hezza, a reference to Heseltine. Is it possible to be both when you're trying to own a constituency that comes with values which you're then not going to follow with policy?
I mean, historically, yes is the answer, because there was a split. I mean, there were two Leave campaigns, don't forget. There was the official Leave campaign and there was the Farage, Aaron Banks Leave campaign, and it was the Farage campaign that did all the unacceptable.
But it was the official Leave campaign that had the Turkey accession nonsense. The two were working.
And talked about the Australian points system.
Yeah,
I mean,
they were working.
The Australian points system is, one of the great, fantastic misunderstandings of modern politics. Australia has a much higher level of immigration than we do. We could introduce an Australian points system.
I don't think I misunderstand. I know what they were up to. I mean, they were talking about the Australian points system because they knew that it would play to people's image of a white country. They weren't doing it for sophisticated policy reasons. And I had that from people who were at the top of the campaign. And so that goes back to the point. Can Boris Johnson really do what he may well want to do, which is be the much-loved metropolitan Liberal, when he's played the hard Brexit card?
But he is doing it. That whatever was said, and by whomever it was said, in 2016, it is just a fact that today the British government, led by Boris Johnson, has relaxed the immigration system. It has, in the past 5 weeks, increased spending on health, increased spending on education, increased spending on the police. Whatever you think about any of those policies,
he'll pull it off, you think?
These are not hard right policies. So, I mean, it's not that I'm not projecting into the future, because obviously I hope that post-Brexit we have a one-nation government led by Boris Johnson. But that he is pulling it off. He's doing it. And the one point where I part company, Philip just said that the government is sending a political signal by doing this. I think the government is doing this. Governments take actions. They don't just send political signals. And actually, changing the immigration system in this way, relaxing the rules for foreign students, is quite a significant step.
If Damian's right, you're going to be regretting your defection, aren't you, Phillip Lee?
No, because the idea that last week was a career move on my part, I'm sorry.
No, but in terms of how he might be a one-nation leader.
I think there is a possibility that this is a winning ticket. My point, though, is that we are delivering Brexit because it successfully persuaded people on certain core issues, the take-back control stuff, which implied that we'd lost something, and immigration played a part, and also promising extra money because there was going to be a bounty to be had by Brexiting. We now know there isn't a bounty to be had by Brexiting. Everybody knows this. We now know the immigration policy isn't necessarily how it was sold to the broader public in 2016. And the take-back control thing was, well, hang on a minute, what are we actually losing by doing this? I mean, the debate has moved on, has become much more informed. And for me, as a Democrat, to take the consent, a narrow consent of the public in 2016, and to proceed with this project, which is deeply disruptive, I think is wrong. And you cannot ignore that core problem in British politics at the moment, and it's not solved by a general election. It has to be solved by consulting the public directly on that issue and seek their explicit consent.
Well, Damian's making the point you might well be able to whistle both tunes, and wouldn't that shoot your political fox in a sense? Because if Boris Johnson does pull this off, he delivers Brexit, and he manages to tack back towards the centre, he sprays money around, builds infrastructure, bridges across places that probably don't need or shouldn't have bridges and the rest of it. He could pull it off.
And of course, the issue at the moment is the people who oppose all of this aren't one party. Okay, and in a first past the post situation, everybody, you don't have to be some clever geek sitting in number 10 to conclude the bleeding obvious. Of course, if you coalesce and consolidate the Leave vote, you've got a chance of winning. It doesn't mean that it's right and in the national interest. And yes, those of us on the opposition parties have to ask ourselves, how do we confront that? And I actually think my party is being quite straightforward. It's seeking a democratic mandate to stop Brexit. It doesn't say it will stop it, only will do it with a democratic mandate, which is in stark contrast to those who want to go forward with the no deal that quite clearly doesn't have an explicit democratic mandate.
If we leave the European Union, what's the point of the Liberal Democrats' view?
Well, the Liberal Democrats will still believe that being a member of the European Union is in the national interest.
But that's going to take that's a long march, isn't it?
Of course it is.
So
of course it is.
Day to day, what's the point of them for you?
For me, oh God, you're asking me if there was more to it than Brexit. Of course there was more, and I looked at their approach on climate change. I looked at their approach on wanting to go cross-party on sorting out social care and healthcare. Everything I looked at, I thought, hang on a minute, that's actually where I am. When I was a justice minister, I had more support in front of me than I did behind. It's quite striking how many ex-justice ministers there are in sort of the rebel group of Conservatives, and including me. We went through the process of realising the criminal justice system needed to be reformed, and yet we're struggling to get the support from people behind us to do so. I have, the main precipitant, of course, has been Brexit. If you'd have asked me 10 years ago, would this have ever happened? Of course, I would not have envisaged it. However, when you actually look at where the Tory party has gone, and I know Damian doesn't want that, and I respect that, and where the Liberal Democrats sit, for me, it was a very comfortable move to make in policy terms.
It's not just that I don't want it. I sort of can see that it's not happening. That absolutely social care is one of the issues which is very dear to my heart. I've written pamphlets on it and so on. And absolutely, I both in government and since have been talking to Norman Lamb and Liz Kendall and people across that.
You were mentally ticking off all the things Philip was talking about and saying those are all on your agenda.
Yeah, exactly. But you don't need to join the Liberal Democrats to have them on your agenda. And since the Conservative Party is in government, you'll actually get more done in the Conservative Party. And any on social care, I mean, is a classic example. Anyone recognises that just as with the pension system, because the changes you make will take 25, 30 years actually to come into effect, you've got to have some kind of cross-party consensus. The same is true on social care, the same is true on lots of issues. Climate change is another one.
Can I ask you, because you've had some experience talking to the DUP in government under Theresa May, they've gone strangely diplomatic and quiet, which is not always the natural resting position of the DUP senior politicians. Do you think something is afoot and there are manoeuvres going on and there is scope for something that would look closer to the Northern Ireland, to the all-Ireland approach to a Brexit deal and not the UK harmonisation with EU rules? Could we be looking at something like that, even though it might be massaged and disguised?
I mean, the honest answer is I don't know. I'm not party to these talks, and those who are party to them are keeping them close very sensibly. I think I do. It's where I disagree with some of my oldest and closest friends in politics. I think the government is serious about trying to get a deal. I think that whatever manoeuvrings are going on, whatever negotiations are going on, both in terms of negotiating with the European Union and, if you like, negotiations with the DUP as well, they are happening, and they are happening because the government and the Prime Minister do want a deal.
And did you look into Boris Johnson's eyes. Some people did and were convinced by that, or you didn't have to be summoned in for that meeting to be persuaded.
I've had a meeting with him, and I mean,
he's supposed to be the most optimistic person in the building, talking about more than 50% chance.
I smiled inwardly when Ruth Davidson said she looked into his eyes, because I'd sort of done the same thing, and yeah, he wants to do.
And that swung you.
Well, it didn't swing me. I mean, yeah, he always said
you believed him.
He wanted a deal. Yes, yes. I think
he's not someone people always trust or believe.
Well, I think it is in the country's interest, therefore the government's interest, therefore the Prime Minister's interest, to have a deal. I mean, in every way.
It's the logic you trusted, not the eyes.
Well, it's both. That, you know, if it's absolutely the logical position for anyone running the British government, accepting the verdict of the people that we need to leave the European Union, that let's do a deal that enables us to get on to sign a decent trade deal with them while we're trying to sign decent trade deals with the rest of the world as well. Everything, you know, life will be much easier if we leave with a deal.
Quick last one to both of you. Philip, you presumably will be standing in the next general election when it comes as a Liberal Democrat. Do you worry about the, as it were, the pro-Remain side of the ledger at the moment, the parties on that side, and their ability to work in any way together, or encourage their supporters to look at certain websites and vote tactically and the rest of it, and that you could be mullered by forces on the Leave side which just manage somehow to coordinate or coalesce better than you do?
Look, there's plenty going on to address that obvious challenge. Are we 100% in the right place yet? No. I think we need a much more, it's one thing to stop Brexit, but you need a positive narrative to try to address the legitimate concerns that people had up and down the country which led to that Brexit vote. And I think, you know, there's always work to do in politics, Gary. But ultimately, I've detected a mood change in the Thames Valley region over the last 18 months, 2 years. And I think that the public have woken up to the reality of what Brexit is likely to be, not what they've been promised. They're obviously angry with politicians for not sorting out. A lot of people say, just get on with it, get it done, which sometimes I think gets misinterpreted as meaning deliver Brexit. It actually probably means just stop talking about it, and they don't really care what it means, just stop talking about it. So I do sense a mood change, and that's why, I mean, I don't actually, I mean, predicting an outcome of a general election at the moment is a fool's errand. And what I'm hopeful of is, to end on a positive note actually, is that if we get to the other side, the two of us actually will be working together on those issues that actually transcend 5-year term limits, social care and things like that, so we can get back to governing the country well, because at the moment, where we are is just not a good place as a country politically. It really isn't.
Damian, general election, do you think that even without doing a handshake deal with Nigel Farage, the chances of Boris Johnson being able to coalesce Leave voters, which is clearly the strategy, better than the other side, does have a chance of consolidating the vote on that side and delivering him a majority? Even though the numbers at the moment don't look like that, it could be there at the end of a campaign. There's a chance.
Yeah, I think everything the past few years has told us that the numbers now are unlikely to be the same as the numbers at the end of an election campaign. And the other thing, and it seems an extraordinary thing to say now, but I will essay it as a sort of wild thought for the end of this, is that it's conceivable that the election campaign won't be all about Brexit, and actually other matters will intrude as well, and that therefore talking about Leave and Remain coalitions may feel slightly last month's thing by the time we get to an election.
And you'll probably be judging Boris Johnson differently, but 2 months into his premiership, marks out of 10. Philip?
Well, you know, I'll try to be objective. I mean, you know, and try to be generous. Maybe 1, maybe 2.
I have long refused to answer marks out of 10 questions on any circumstances in any political subject, and I think I will maintain consistency in this matter. I think Boris is doing very well.
Seasoned veteran answer. Thank you both, and thank you for letting us sit in your office, Philip. Thanks very much indeed.